How long does it take to become an expert in a chosen field? In a study called the Development of Talent Project, Dr. Benjamin Bloom of Northwestern University scrutinized the careers of world-class sculptors, pianists, chess masters, tennis players, swimmers, mathematicians, and neurologists. And he discovered that across these diverse professions, it takes between 10 to 18 years before world-class competency is reached. It takes 17.4 years from your first piano lesson to your victory at the Van Cliburn or Chopin piano competitions. The point of the study is that it takes time to be the best, be it a pilot, a doctor, a tennis player, a chef, or even a salesperson. Welcome to the 260 Journey, and welcome to Paul's 10,000 hour challenge to Timothy, the young pastor, in 1 Timothy 4. Author and researcher Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Outliers, calls becoming an expert the 10,000 hour rule. How do you become the greatest band of all time? An expert in rock and roll? 10,000 hours. Gladwell speaks about the Beatles' seemingly instant success that many think happened on the Ed Sullivan Show in one night. Gladwell says not even close. It's the band's 10,000 hours playing in Hamburg that made them who they were, not a night on American TV. Listen to this schedule for the band's 10,000 hours. The Beatles ended up traveling to Hamburg 5 times between 1960 and the end of 1962. On the first trip, they played 106 nights of 5 or more hours a night. Their second trip, they played 92 times. Third trip, 48 times, for a total of 172 hours on stage. The last 2 Hamburg stints in November and December 1962 involved another 90 hours of performing. All told, they performed for 270 nights in just over a year and a half. By the time they had their first burst of success in 1964, they had performed live an estimated 1,200 times, which is extraordinary. Most bands today don't perform 1,200 times in their entire careers. The Hamburg Crucible is what set the Beatles apart. Gladwell considers the key to success in any field is simply a matter of practicing a specific task that can be accomplished with 20 hours a week for a week of work for 10 years. Paul was giving this challenge to Timothy in one word. Listen to it. It's 1 Timothy 4, 7, and 8. But have nothing to do with worldly fables fit for only old women. On the other hand, discipline yourselves for the purpose of godliness. For bodily discipline is only of little profit, but godliness is profitable for all things, since it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. Did you hear the most important word that Paul used? Discipline. This is so important. Someone once said, the distance from your dream to reality is called discipline. This is why most people miss their dreams. The other side of an undisciplined life is disappointment. The grandmaster level of chess, a concert pianist, a high-level athlete, have the word discipline in common. And Paul was telling Timothy, your goal in discipline is godliness. Or putting it another way, godliness is not automatic. You have to work at it. Getting born again, Christ did the work for you. Getting godly, you have to discipline yourself. Listen to the verse from the Message translation. Exercise daily in God. No spiritual flabbiness, please. Workouts in the gymnasium are useful, but a disciplined life in God is far more so, making you fit both for today and forever. I had a friend tell me one time he was speaking to the boxing welterweight champion of the world, and he told me he would set his alarm every night at 1 a.m. and do 100 sit-ups and 100 push-ups. When my friend asked him why he did it, he said, I knew I was working while my opponent was sleeping, and I wanted the edge on him. That's where 10,000 hours comes from. Discipline and effectiveness travel together. Discipline and success go together. Henry Nouwen speaks about discipline for our spiritual life and said this: discipline means to prevent everything in your life from being filled up. Discipline means that somewhere you're not occupied and certainly not preoccupied. In the spiritual life, discipline means to create that space in which something can happen that you hadn't planned on or even counted on. Jim Elliot was a modern-day missionary and martyr. He was killed by the Auca Indians while Jim was trying to get the gospel to them. Watch the movie End of the Spear or read his wife's book of the story Through Gates of Splendor to not only know the story, but to see his 10,000 hours rule in life. Jim wrote these powerful words about his devotional life. He said this: I am no longer dependent on pleasant impulses to bring me before the Lord. I must rather respond to principles I know to be right, whether I feel it or whether it's enjoyable or not. Because Timothy joined Paul before AD 50, and Paul is writing in the early 60s, Timothy is at least in his mid-20s and could well be in his early or mid-30s. This term for youth in verse 12 could apply up to the age of even 40 in that culture, although it usually applied especially to someone under 29. The challenge to young Timothy is that you will have a lot of distractions in life, but get focused on the right thing. Discipline is focus. Discipline is work. Discipline puts blinders to things that are crying for your attention and time. And Paul challenged Timothy about going to a Planet Fitness. He is reminding him that it's not bad, it's just not best if you're pursuing eternal things. Don't get nervous. I go to the gym, but not at the expense of not caring for my soul and my walk with Jesus. Listen to his admonishment again in verse 8. Workouts in the gymnasium are useful, but a disciplined life in God is far more so, making you fit both for today and forever. No horse gets anywhere unless he is harnessed. No steam or gas drives anything unless it's confined. No Niagara is ever turned into light and power until it's tunneled, and no life ever grows great until it's focused, dedicated, and disciplined. One of the greatest golfers in the world was known for his discipline. While hitting off the practice tees, he heard someone behind him say, "I wish I could hit a golf ball like that." He turned around and said to the onlooker, "No, you don't. If you miss one time, you have to hit 1,000 balls till your hands bleed and bandage them up, and then you have to hit another 1,000. He said to him this, you want the results, but you don't want the discipline. Timothy, the Apostle Paul says godliness is the goal and discipline is the key. Thanks for joining the 260 Journey.